Channeling my inner Liberace tonight as it's Quarantini time, and I'd like to welcome you all back and thank you for being here, if indeed there is anybody out there at all, because you never really know. I might just be talking to myself.
I know.
Hold on, let me just test the Quarantini de Nuit. Very nice indeed. Well, here we are. This is how many of these have we done so far?
Six. Well, we forgot to put a number on one of them, so I think we skipped 4.
So we've done 5.
Or 6.
No, it can't be 5 weeks of this, surely.
Well, but we've been doing 2 a week sometimes because of the
All right.
Thursday ones.
So, okay. So I'm losing track at this point of self-isolation.
Keep drinking.
As everybody else is probably. But anyway, thank you for coming back to the Quarantini Hour. And the idea here is to have a bit of a laugh, invite you into my funky studio where I've been busy working on some new stuff. And for fun, I've made some funky little piano ringtones. And if anybody wants them. So if you go, the way to get them is to go to where it's the donate address thing. It'll take you to the website. And there's a subscription thing. If you want to subscribe for exclusive stuff that I'll be doing here in the studio over the next few weeks in my Quarantinian splendor, then sign up and we'll email stuff to you. So sign up and we'll email you a when you get back ringtone. That's a little bit in the middle where it goes. So get your funky ringtones on. All right. So we're here for the next 50 odd minutes. Anything longer than 50 minutes and the machines start crapping out. It's all very high tech here. And we're also branching out today and sending this to YouTube Live. So the theory is that if any of you have YouTube on your tellies, you should be able to go and watch it on the telly. That's the plan. But to let us know if it's working. Actually, if it's working, you can see it. Please send us a message to let us know, because it's all very confusing. Anyway, let me play a little boogie woogie. And if anybody's got any questions this evening, please feel free to dial them in, especially ones about music. Don't ask me any questions about football or darts or international politics, because I won't really know the answer. But I can play you a boogie woogie. Ta-da.
My mother's watching.
Judy's watching. Hello, Judy. How are you, my darling? Drink
Dad's
you a
probably there
toast.
too.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jerry.
And then Janet Levin from New Hampshire, and let's see, there was somebody from Long Island. Kimberly Rice Gaggs from Seattle.
Great.
Oh, look,
There's
Chris
people.
here.
Chris Norsley from
Yeah,
next door.
From next door.
Seattle,
Kimball Packard,
Long
another
Island.
hi from New Hampshire. Lynn Claire says Minneapolis is dialed in.
Oh, cool. And we're also got some people in Australia, I believe, because I think it's about noon over there, 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that.
Well, we know at least Nate and Chris are watching.
All right. So, anybody got any interesting questions or requests?
Oh, here's an interesting one.
Not rude
Okay,
requests.
I got one. So Michael Bursky says, "Hi John, enjoying these quarantinis. You have mentioned mathematical relationships in music in passing. What do you mean? If I am good in math, should I be good in music?"
Well, if you're good at maths, then you probably have a fairly logical brain. And logic is very useful when you're learning music. So you can say, if this is to that, what this is to that, then this is to that, and this will be to that. And you can start understanding the relationships and figuring out what ultimately leads you to a thing called the cycle of fifths or the cycle of fourths, depending which way you go around. And there's a lot of logic, and I think people who are good at mathematics are supposed to be pretty good at music. But I was useless at mathematics at school. I hated mathematics. So I don't know if I'm the exception that proves the rule. But music is a lovely, it's a beautiful marriage of logic and mathematics and numbers on the one hand, and then that other part of your brain that deals with a world that exists totally outside of that realm. And I think that's where when they talk about inspiration, that's what they're talking about, really, the way you can improvise music and somehow allow something else to take over and take control. New Orleans is one of the first places where they threw away the charts and played head arrangements and funked up the tunes of the day. And that's kind of the basic MO of jazz and the way jazz musicians play. And it's to do with spontaneous composition and improvising around a theme, but you're always working within the frameworks of music. It's not like you just suddenly just flick a weird switch and your fingers just start playing random notes. There are the patterns that you employ and shapes that you employ and concepts that you employ when you're improvising. But it's all improvisational. Like when you just sit down and play. Just playing the blues, for example. I don't know what that was. I've never played that before, and I'll never ever play it again exactly the same. But the vocabulary and the language are tools that I use all the time. So you do employ mathematics and logic when you're drawing on the laws of music as a way of building within a framework. If that makes any sense to you. Any more questions?
Yeah, I think the camera on your keyboard, the overhead one, is not working.
Oh.
All right, we'll try and fix it, but I don't know if we can. Well.
Did it get unplugged? Oh, hold on. Let me just see.
Unplugged?
No, it just turned itself off.
It did?
Let me see.
Oh. All right, we're trying to fix the overhead camera. Stand by. Um,
Well, that didn't seem to do anything. Oh no, hold on,
no,
because there's a
I think
lag.
it's there. I think there's a lag. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It just.
All right. High
Yeah.
tech. It
Yeah.
gives me an opportunity to drink another Quarantini.
What we see here is 15 seconds before you guys see it. So we're in the future. Okay, well, Clutch Riley says Johnny Adams, please, spelled Puleez.
Johnny Adams,
Please.
please. Johnny Adams. Johnny Adams. He was a bit of a. I liked him actually. Johnny. He was a bit of a grumpy old character, but basically he was a nice guy. Johnny Adams was a one-eyed singer. He always wore dark glasses, and he always seemed to play in nightclubs where it was really dark as well. So I don't know how he saw anything really. But Johnny Adams was a tall fella, always impeccably dressed, with velvet suits and jerry curl hair. You could almost see the grease dripping off of his head on a hot night when it was cooking. And I played with him when in the mid '80s, around 1985, when a time when a guy called Walter Washington was his musical director, and Walter and I had become friends. And Walter asked me to come and play the Friday and Saturday night gigs at a joint on Orleans Avenue called Dorothy's Medallion Lounge. And somewhere I've got a Dorothy's Medallion Lounge poster. I would get it down, but I'd probably fall over if I tried to reach up and get it. But I've got a nice old poster from Dorothy's Medallion up there. And Dorothy's Medallion was a funky little joint.
Get it.
And Dorothy herself was a character. Walter told me she was into some voodoo stuff, and I heard from somewhere else that Walter had been playing there for so many years, and they thought it was because she had some voodoo things going on that compelled him to show up. But the band always showed up late, and we'd usually start playing at 2:00 in the morning and play for about half an hour. Walter would do his set for half an hour, and it would be blistering, really good, and the band would get really hot. And then when the band was really cooking, Johnny would come on stage, and the stage was tiny and was taken up, half of it was taken up most of the evening by a shake dancer called Big Linda, who was the size of a tank and would shake dance to whatever was on the jukebox, wearing only a few sort of carefully, strategically placed tassels. And she'd always look really bored. She'd be like chewing gum and just staring at space on the wall. And she was like the elephant, literally the elephant in the room, but everybody totally ignored her. I think I never really saw anybody actually checking her out or anything, but it was her job to dance in between the sets. And she would change in the ladies' toilet behind the bandstand, which was the size of a penny anyway. And then she came and she emerged from her dressing room, the toilet, and she'd have to squeeze in between all the instruments on the stage to get to her spot. And in the process, she'd sort of leave a trail of destruction in her wake, with cymbal stands and guitars and amplifiers all falling over. So it was the whole place was a complete shambles, but I think it's some of the best music I ever heard in my life. And when Johnny would come up, he would usually start with, please release me, let me go. He was kind of like the Black Tom Jones, or he could have been the Black Pavarotti, or there's no point in making those comparisons really. He just had the most incredible voice. In another life, he could have been a really amazing opera singer. He just had this set of pipes, but as it is, he grew up singing gospel music and sang all kinds of stuff, country tunes, funk tunes, rhythm and blues, great blues singer. We toured together and played in Japan, and we played in Switzerland and Scandinavia and France and all sorts of European destinations, toured around the States, and very sorely missed. When he was told that he had prostate cancer, they held a big benefit for him at a joint in town, which is a gig which doubles as a bowling alley. And they'd actually raised a bunch of money for him. And he took the money and went out and bought him a Cadillac. And so, and then he died a few months later. But the last few months of, and he looked fine on the gig. He got up and sang. He looked like he was completely all right. But anyway, he got up and sang, got the money, bought a nice Cadillac, and drove around town, and then passed away. So yeah, very, very sadly missed Johnny Adams. And God, what a privilege it was to sing, play with him.
Here's a comment from YouTube.
Oh.
Rafael Santos says, "What's the relevance of ragtime in your work? Is there any?"
Ragtime, not really. I never was much of a ragtime fan, particularly, but I have a lot of respect for people that play it very well because it involves a lot of amazingly dexterous left hand stride playing, which is. As you can hear, I'm completely butchering that, but that's the general idea. Stride piano and ragtime come from the same place. Ragging was a verb that they used to describe taking a melody, a well-known melody, and then messing with it and squeezing the juice out of it and altering the melody to make it sound hipper. That was ragtime. And stride piano really comes from the same place. And if I slow it down, it's like. And it's using the left hand to go. It's hard to split up the two hands. Don't chang, don't chang, don't. It's like you play on a guitar. Boom, chang, boom, gong, chang, gong, chang. Really good ragtime players and early jazz players like Jelly Roll Morton were incredibly precise, incredibly fast. It was never a style that particularly appealed to me. I think the thing is you have to understand that when that music came out, it was incredibly revolutionary and was fast and sexy and controversial, unbelievably exciting for people. They'd never heard anything like it. Of course, now, a century later, to our ears, it sounds very old-fashioned and is the kind of novelty music they put to accompany funny videos and stuff like that. So for me, as a kid coming up, I didn't really dig it particularly. But I have some friends who really play it well, and I have nothing but respect for them because it's very hard to play. Some of it informs what I do. I mean, James Booker used to hint at it too. And when you're playing solo piano, you often have to fill out the picture. You know, if you're playing with a band, you have a bass player and a drummer, and they cover a lot of stuff, and you can change what you play. You're operate in a smaller part of the picture. But if it's just you, then you have to imply the bass lines and the rhythms, and so some of those tools come into play, even with the blues, like. Booker used them for like songs like Pup's Dilemma. Something like that, anyway.
So the overhead camera conked out.
Ah.
Sorry, the only way to make it work is to turn everything off and turn it on.
Oh, well.
So sorry, guys, no overhead camera.
Never mind. I'll just have another quick sip of my Quarantini instead.
Just drink. It'll be fine. Todd Hollis says, is it a pedal, a certain construction, or the particular resonance of New Orleans that gives honky-tonk piano that vibration and tone?
Well, you know, some of these words are a bit ambiguous, these adjectives that describe music. You need to have them because People like to talk about music, not just play it or listen to it. And so honky tonk piano is, honestly, I don't really know what that is. I mean, I kind of know what you mean by it, but it's a vague coverall that can cover lots of different styles. I mean, really, honky tonk were old bar rooms, and a honky tonk piano was a piano in a honky tonk. And I think a lot of people think of pianos that are slightly out of tune, a bit like the F here on my. Is it the F? Or the C that's starting to slip. One of the notes is starting to slide. So when one of the strings goes slightly out of tune, you get a chorusy effect. And so that's a sound that people think of as honky tonk. And there were records in the 50s. If you go into thrift stores and look through the albums, you'll find honky tonk records. Somebody with a waistcoat on with his shirt sleeves rolled up like this and a hat on playing the piano. And the pianos would usually be detuned just a little bit to give them a jangly sound. I've got a piano over here. You might not even be able to hear it. You won't be able to see it. You might be able to hear it. That's not that out of tune, actually. Not enough to give you an idea of what I mean. But honky tonk is a kind of a sound, and I would suggest that it's really a slightly out of tune piano. That's what the honky tonk means. But often people think of the actual style as being this kind of. And that's a style, this when you play a chord and then you do the wobbly thing like that. That's a feature of New Orleans piano playing and the blues in general and a lot of jazz. With instruments like the human voice and with string instruments and reed instruments, you can add vibrato to a note. So you can sing a note straight, you can go, ah, or you go, ah. But you can't do that with the piano. You hit the string, and that's what you get. But you can emulate it and impersonate it by playing an octave and doing that. And you can do it fast. I like to do it quite slow, really, because I like slow vibrato. So that style, even Jerry Lee Lewis from North Louisiana used that on a lot of his stuff. But it's also associated with the old pub piano players from London. And Alan Toussaint said to me one time, I can't remember where we were, but he said, "Man, you're playing all this New Orleans music, but with your funny voice, where was it? What do you play? What do they play where you come from?" And I said, "Well, one of the things I grew up with my grandmother, who was a singer, had a lovely voice, and dearly loved music. But her childhood, her father, my great-grandfather, was of the music hall era. And from an era right up until not long after the war years, where every pub had a piano. If you were going to have music, you had to have a piano. Jukeboxes kind of killed the pianos off, really, in the same way that radios then killed off the jukeboxes. But in the times when there were pianos in every pub, same as here in New Orleans, there were pianos in every saloon bar. You would have people that would play, and that was. And so you had that ragtime thing we were talking about earlier on, the stride piano, and that element too were a large feature of that music. So I grew up with. In my musical family, with a lot of people who had an appreciation of that musical background. That was the musical soundtrack to a Londoner's life in the post-war years. And my granddad was a singer, and my grandmother was a singer. My dad's dad played piano, and he would have played in the pubs and using those same kind of things. So it's kind of not that big of a jump for me to move on to the New Orleans stuff, even though my roots are from a different continent. But anyway, I hope that answers some of your honky-tonk questions.
Dave Monroe says, what songs you keep going back to that touches your own heart and gives you energy?
Well, that's a nice question. What songs do I keep going back to? Well, this is a song for people who have the impeccable taste to tune in regularly to the Quarantini Hour. You will have heard mention of this song by Professor Longhair called Tipatina. And I always go back to this because it's one of the basic building blocks, but it's also infinitely malleable and adaptable. So Tipatina is the Junkers Blues. I think this has kind of come up in pretty much every one we've done. But Junkers Blues, you could play it like this if you wanted to. If you're feeling a bit wistful or melancholy, or if it was quiet, you were just relaxed by yourself. And then you can take the same basic framework and play something joyful like this. There is one I've been coming back to a lot recently, and I used to hear James Booker play this, and it was the one I was playing actually when we went on the air. I often sit down and just play this, especially with what's been going on recently. But I heard Booker play this tune many times without really knowing what it was. It was just he didn't sing any words to it. He just played it as an instrumental. And I heard it so much that I picked up the basic melody and the parts of it. And one time when I was back in England and playing my grandma's old piano, and she heard me playing and came into the room. And started singing the words, and I didn't know what the song was. I was amazed that she knew it. I didn't know it was a standard, and I didn't know there were lyrics to it. But it's called "I'll Be Seeing You," and for people who can remember in their childhood the war years, they might remember this song. It was very. It's a beautiful song. It's a very sad song. It's about. Lyrics is "I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places," and the idea is that you're going to be separated from the ones that you love, but hang in there because it's all going to be all right, and we'll meet again. But it's gorgeous, the melody and the way Booker played it was so beautiful. I can't remember what key I do it in a few different keys. I'll do it in C just for operation. But I'll just show you some of these the melody anyway. So it goes on, but it's gorgeous. And then I found out much later on that it was actually the tune that Liberace used to play out with all his television shows, which kind of ruined it for me a little bit because he was so corny, Liberace, but he could really play. And he really played that song beautifully. But for a lot of people, they're associated with Liberace. And that's why I said at the beginning that I was channeling my inner Liberace with my Quarantini. But actually, I was channeling my inner James Booker from when I used to hear him play at the Maple Leaf on Tuesdays, and those occasions when he'd be in there just hanging out and playing when there was nobody around. So.
Your drummer is here. He says, "Hello, John. Got a new mota, and it's phonetically spelled."
Oh yeah, AJ.
Megan Jerome, this is just nice. She says, "Oh yes, Yahoo, the Junkers Blues. Thank you. Spent much of my day trying to lift the version. Maybe that means learn the version of Lean on Me at the end of the first lesson. This is also totally enjoyable. Has totally reconnected me with my love of piano. Thank you so much. I'm getting all my piano students and their families to learn Lean on Me as well. Thanks from Iowa."
That's great.
Right?
Cool. Well, I thought today, because I've been playing piano on this, and just so people don't start getting bored. But that's lovely to know that people aren't getting bored. Someone at least isn't getting bored to tears with the piano. I think I've decided on the subsequent Quarantini hours, just for fun, I'm going to bust out some other instruments. And so I don't know if you can see behind me, but I got my lovely old bass. Should I play some bass?
Yeah, well, actually, John Hyman earlier said your guitar has grown.
Yeah, John. I'm going to see if I can... Tell me, Trish, if you can see me.
All right, hold on, let me get to the other thing. Yes.
Put this up here. Just for fun and just to break it up a little bit. The only thing is I've got it on so it doesn't fall over. I've got it on the stand, which means I can't get my hand past it. I can go like that, but it's a bit hard to play any of the high notes.
You can take it out of the stand because it doesn't matter if you knock the upper camera because
Oh
it's not
yeah,
working.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, the other camera's not working anyway. Let me move it out here then. Very high-tech production on this whole thing. Well, now hear that sugar dumpling. Let me tell you something, girl. I've been trying to say, you look so sweet and you so fine. I can't get you out of my mind. You become a sweet taste in my mouth now, and I want you to be my spouse, so that we can live happily now in a great big roomy house alone. I know you're gonna groove it, baby. Oh, so can make me feel good inside. play more bass or get back on the piano? I'm kind of enjoying. I like playing other instruments for a change.
Smoke on the water.
Smoke on the water. Is that you or somebody else?
Me.
Oh, it's you. I thought that was somebody genuinely making a request for Smoke on the Water. Should have known it was you. But you are to be obeyed at all times, so I've done due diligence and played you a little bit. That's about as much as I know. That's the bass part. Are you enjoying this? I hope you are enjoying it, because everybody else is having to suffer through it. But I am only playing it because you must be obeyed at all times, as is well known. So, should I put the bass down and get back on the piano? Yeah, all right.
Oh, Pony Boy. Pony Boy.
Pony Boy.
Jean-Louis Roberts says Pony Boy.
Wow.
Can you play that on the bass? No. That's a guitar thing? A piano thing?
Well now, don't look for me, 'cause I'm alright. Lord knows I'm having a natural good time. Pocket full of money, gon' boogie all night. Ain't nobody gonna tell me that's a crime. Morning comes and it's time to go. A pony boy carry me home. Oh, pony boy carry me home. Well, now band is jumping and so am I. Whatever the words are. Lawman's got that old evil eye. He's busy waiting and we're celebrating. Morning comes and it's time to go. A pony boy carry me home. Well, now pony boy carry me home. Well, pony boy carry, pony boy carry, pony boy carry me home. Pony boy. I've got to stop playing the bass because my fingers are starting to hurt. Okay, make sure that doesn't fall over. All right.
All right.
Next week I might play the. I don't know what I could play next week. Maybe the mandolin or the Hawaiian 8-string ukulele. Hold on. There's an emergency just developed on top of the piano that requires immediate remedying. That's better.
This is ice cubes.
Oh, yes.
Oops.
All the machines are going wonky. Okay.
Oh, here's one.
Ready for another question?
All right. Hold on. Let's see.
Just have a little sip of my
Go so fast.
cocktail.
Mary Menel-Bell says you mentioned you'd take some jazz standards and put a NOLA R&B spin to them. Which types of tunes lend themselves to that? Would Bye Bye Blackbird or There Will Never Be Another You or any of Pop's tunes like Kiss to Build a Dream On?
Well, I've got a confession to make. I'm really useless at the standards because I'm not really a piano player. That's the secret. I kind of ended up being a piano player by accident. And so I never kind of learnt the jazz standards songbook. Never did those kind of gigs. What was Bye Bye Blackbird?
Bye Bye Blackbird.
How's the melody? Do you know how the melody
Kiss
goes to
Build
that one?
a-
Bye. I've heard it.
Dream On, do you know that one?
I know them all, but I can't remember. Something like that.
That's it, yeah.
Yes, you've found an area of my musical expertise that's sorely wanting, which is the jazz standards. Perhaps one day when I'm a jazz piano player, I'll actually be required to learn them if I end up, God forbid, making a living just playing jazz piano in playing background music in cocktail lounges. So I need to learn all this. No, I came up playing guitar, and then like New Orleans rhythm and blues. So my piano playing is really based in new R&B and funk, that aspect of it.
You want some song requests?
Sure.
When You Get Back, Unnecessarily Mercenary, Tipatina, Port Street, Moonburn, Fool's Game. Helen Barksdale says Dynamite, Lonely Nights.
Lonely, Lonely Nights. Lonely, Lonely Nights was by Earl King. There have been some lonely, lonely nights. Ah, baby, yeah, since you've been gone. I lay my head down on my pillow. Oh, how I cried all night long. The things you used to say to me. You said that we would never part. Well, you know how much I really love you. Why did you break my heart? If you would only come back home and take me in your loving arms, well, you know I'd be so happy, baby. I wouldn't be so all alone. Oh, I love that song. South Louisiana, 6/8 Triplet Blues by Earl King.
Greg Zink says, how about a habanera Nola style?
All right. Well, now, baby, I wouldn't stop now even if I wanted to. I spun out of control all on account of you. You just set a spark that lit my world on fire. Crawling from the wreckage of the club Desire. Well, cut these demons loose, they got their teeth in me. But I don't mind, it feels so good, I wanna let them be. I wanna ride this roller coaster into the dark unknown. So hold on tight, 'cause baby, I ain't letting go. No, 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 I ain't letting go. See, 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 see what you've done to me. something like that.
Diz Watson is watching.
Hey, Diz. I'll raise a glass to Diz. Diz gave me some of my first gigs in London when he was playing at the Dublin Castle and the Hare and Hounds with Diz and the Doormen. Killing band, great band. Check out Diz. Any chance you get to see Diz Watson play, go and check him out.
More requests?
Yeah.
All right. A few people have asked for Fool's Game.
Fool's Game.
And then you also have the option of, you want to do that one or you want me to say some more?
Yeah, say some more.
Okay. Port Street Blues, Moonburn, When You Get Back, Dynamite, Unnecessarily Mercenary.
Play a little bit of Port Street Blues, because I feel like playing the blues tonight. Camelback Riverside Shack, a Creole shack on a little yard out back, cool breeze and Wrigley's in, blowing through my banana trees and rusty freight ship drifting in from an ocean far away. Cast long shadows on my back porch. Oh Lord, it's a sad time of day. I'm just trying to tell y'all about a little feeling I can't lose when I'm a long way from home, y'all. Just when I get the Port Street and blues. See, there's a beat up piano, the cha-cha's out of tune now. Never cold and there's a messed up jukebox to take up all the room. You can't sit down for stacks and stacks of scratched up 45s. And the cobwebs hang from the ceiling fan and blow the smoke back in your eyes. But the door is always open if you're somewhere close by around, and the walls always shaking to a sweet and soulful sound. See, when I get back down on Port Street, gonna kick out both my shoes, gonna pour me out a fresh one, y'all, slap on my grocery grooves, calling on the friendly travelers, hear the wolfman and all the blues. See, now I'm hanging out with the funk captain, y'all, back home at Port Street, FHQ. Woo! Well, now Port Street, baby, well, that's the only place I find, yeah. I can rest my worried heart, rest my worried heart, rest my worried heart. I can rest my worried heart, oh yeah. Ooh, rest my worried heart, yeah, and pacify my mind. Port Street Blues.
This is from a little while ago. Mike Jacobs says, "Do you have any techniques to develop your two-hand independence?"
Not really special exercises necessarily. It's something I'm still trying to develop. I've been trying to develop it for about 40 years, really. But, Tipatina, keep coming back to Tipatina, that was a great one for me, really, to start as a kid starting to play piano. It was one of the first things I tried to play. And that's kind of good. It's hard to play it right. Just that is a good thing to practice. And then you can make it more complicated. And I like to, different piano players. Fest took the Junkers Blues and made it more sophisticated. Then Mac Rebennack did a really nice thing. When he would play it, he would mess around with not just the time, but with the harmonic structure. But certainly with time, playing funk, you can get real funky with it. So you start off with just the basic. And then make it. And then make it. And then make it. When you play funk, you're really playing, I've said this before many times, really, you're playing percussion. You're using the piano as a percussion instrument. And some, messing that up royally, but but that's one of the classic licks. It's easier to play on a clavinet than on a piano. Very superstitious, the writings on the wall. If you're working on that and it's a challenge, because it really is a challenge to do that stuff, it's good to just play percussion along to get a conga, get used to this kind of thing, and then play, always find something that you can play, and then go for something that's just a little bit beyond your grasp. And if you keep trying to play stuff, I'm always trying to play stuff that I can't play and failing royally, but it's only by doing that you actually do stretch out and reach and get a bit further each time. So most of the time when I'm at home playing piano, I'm just making mistake after another. But that's good. That's how you get better, So just keep playing funk. Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to play us out with a song? How about "In the Mood," "Wrong Number," "Just Kissed" when you get back?
Just kiss my baby.
And next time we'll get the other camera.
Well, I think it's time to finish my Quarantini glass and bid you all good night. Thank you very much for joining me on this hot and sultry Tuesday evening in New Orleans. In this weird world we're all living in at the moment, where we're all kind of locked up in isolation. So I hope this has been a little bit of a diversion for you. As I said, I'm going to be beavering away in the studio, remaking some old tunes, writing on some new stuff. And some of this stuff, if I dig it, I'm gonna make it available to the fans. Sometimes it's the kind of stuff you wouldn't actually